not been to Minnesota in probably 20 years.
Bring your ass.
Welcome to Flagrant Howls, a Minnesota Timberwolves lifestyle podcast.
So yeah, we figured we would just jump on live here in the calm before the trade deadline storm, the middle of Giannis watch 2026 after the Conley trade yesterday. And whatever the next shoe to drop is, assuming that there is another shoe to drop, if there's not, that would be an interesting subject to explore. But we'll jump on and do an emergency episode at some point. And so you're looking at least like a couple more Flagrant Howls episodes this week as we react to what's going on. But we figured let's jump on live here on the Flagrant Howls YouTube channel. Click that subscribe button, the like button if you haven't already. And we can do kind of a two-part thing here, boys. Part one, Mike Conley appreciation episode. And then part two can be the latest in what's been percolating and happening. Giannis spoke to reporters last night after their game. He's been hurt, so he actually left the bench with time left in the game, and people are like, "Oh, this is it! He's being traded right now." But before we do all those things, Dex, let's shout out a great place if you're looking to stay near Target Center, Element Hotel. Or maybe you've just been traded and you're looking for temporary housing. I don't know.
That's right. Element Hotel is this place to be. In fact, I can do this for you. How about you just use scorenorth.com/element, and that will give you 15% off your room rate. So scorenorth.com/element for that. Great place for a free Wi-Fi, a business center. It's also a pet-friendly hotel. So now you need some temporary housing because you're a new Timberwolf coming to town. You got your own little wolf with you. Go to the Element Hotel, scorenorth.com/element for 15% off.
Man, on the Mike Conley front, so yeah, yesterday, and the Wolves made it official with a press release here. Conley to the Bulls as part of a multi-team trade for what winds up being a first-round pick swap between the Wolves and the Pistons and some cash considerations. So the Wolves don't actually get an asset back in the Mike Conley trade. What they get is flexibility under the first apron. So they now are $2.5 million under the first apron, which allows them to take back some additional salary in a bigger trade. And there's a couple reports out there. ESPN had this yesterday that they could have taken Kobe White back, his expiring contract, and he would have been this scoring punch off the bat. You basically could have swapped Mike Conley, who has made 3 shots in the last 3 weeks, for Kobe White, who, if given minutes, is like a 20 points per night, pretty efficient scorer. And the Wolves said, no, we'd rather have the opening and the flexibility to keep big game hunting for Giannis. And that's where things stand right now. And we'll get into some more. Giannis spoke last night. There's a couple other interesting reports. The news cycle is moving very fast, but Rudy Gobert was just quoted by The Athletic as saying this morning at shoot-around, for me, Mike has been a guy, Mike Conley, that I have a tremendous amount of respect for and love and friendship. They played together in Utah and in Minnesota. So obviously this morning on the team bus, looking next to me on the bus and seeing an empty seat, it hurt me a little bit. Tear. What are your guys' thoughts on the Mike Conley era coming to an end and just his impactfulness as a Timberwolf in the franchise's history?
Well, I think it was tremendous, because if you go back to that trade, and I mean, as far as fallout goes, that trade falls below clearly Gobert from Utah that Tim Conley pulled off a month and a half into his tenure here, and clearly the training camp Eve trade of Cat to the Knicks. All of that being said, if you look at what it fundamentally meant to go from D'Lo to Mike Conley, and don't forget too, Gobert, beyond being just friends with Mike, Gobert was partially unlocked. He went from having D'Lo, who didn't want to pass him the ball, to having Mike Conley, who knew how to pass him the ball. Gobert is sort of a weird ship, and if Gobert has somebody who understands how he plays, I think it's huge. Just the maturity that Conley brought, the play for a couple of seasons, obviously not this season that Conley brought. Everything that he did screamed professional. And got to be honest, the Timberwolves have had some players who have not been professional, and he was. So I think it was absolutely huge. And I actually think it'll probably go down as far as the Timberwolves reaching back-to-back conference championships. I think it might go down as the most under the radar importance, like of all the things that got you to back-to-back Western Conference finals, the presence of Ant, Gobert. If you go through all of those, I think Mike Conley might go down as the most underrated but crucial chip to making that happen.
Yeah, I think just back to your D'Lo point is a great one because it takes you back to before they went to their first Western Conference Finals in this run. And they were, I think initially they thought maybe we can build this thing around Ant, Carl, D'Lo, and Rudy Gobert. And this is a great little foursome to build something around. D'Lo had an expiring contract, so they had to make a decision. Like, is D'Lo part of this going forward or not? And D'Lo ruled himself out. Of course, he's now just been benched by like his third consecutive team. Dallas has had him stashed for like the last month, and he's just kind of showing you who he is as a player and an immature veteran in the league. But not only was D'Lo not meshing well with Gobert at the time, he was openly mocking Gobert but like in front of cameras to media in the locker room and just kind of clowning Gobert, who has a unique personality and has been maybe hard to mesh with for other teammates too. So they make that trade, and they get Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who was a driving force for those winning Timberwolves teams. And Mike Conley comes in, and I know he didn't necessarily score as many points as D'Lo, but he was a better overall basketball player and contributor to winning basketball by miles than D'Lo ever has been or ever will be. And he was the glue that essentially brought Rudy Gobert and the rest of the team together. He showed, here's how you pass to Gobert. Here's how you communicate with Gobert. Like, he put his arm around Gobert during a time where everyone was skeptical, even internally, about, to what extent is this trade going to work? And for that, and for the productivity over like parts of 4 years, I know it's not necessarily a Lakers-esque list of top Timberwolves of all time. I really think he's one of the 5 or 6 most impactful Timberwolves of all time. I mean, get past your KGs and your Ant Edwards. We probably have to revisit the top 100 Timberwolves of all time that Kyle and I had put together years ago. We've done that exercise. Like, Mike Conley is a more impactful Timberwolf than Jimmy Butler the one year, even though he brought the Wolves to the playoffs. I think he passes Sam Cassell when you look at the body of work. Like, Cassell was a one-year bolt of lightning, and he was the second best player on that team. I don't think Conley's ever been the second best player on a Timberwolves team. But when you look at his impact, back-to-back Western Conference Finals, maturity, leadership, I can tell you for a fact he's been right there for years next to Anthony Edwards in film breakdowns, helping him grow as a leader, as a studier, etc. And good news, according to Bobby Marks, the Bulls are reportedly looking to trade Mike Conley. If he's traded again and bought out, he would then be able to return to the Minnesota Timberwolves and fill out one of their 2 open roster spots. Now, it's possible the Wolves, because they do have 2 open roster spots, it's possible that they would acquire players in addition to Giannis, and we'd have to see how that shakes out. But there is still a chance that Mike Conley just comes back to the Timberwolves if he gets bought out. So keep that in mind.
Don't you think as well, too, that, and this is why I think the respect for Tim Conley is so high. The understanding of, especially in season, of what your team needs beyond like a star player. Because Mike Conley, he played really well here for a period of time, but to your point, he was never like a top 2 player here. But the maturity he brought, the stability is probably the best word, the extension of Chris Finch, because he gets that, the calmness. Like there have been, if you go back through the history of championship teams, at times in all sports at the deadline, there have been moves made that might not like knock the socks off fans nationally, but end up being just huge chips, huge pieces to a team's success. And like Mike Conley was that. I'll give you the Twins equivalent. In fact, I think there is a perfect parallel here. And it was only for a part of a season, but Don Baylor, 87. Hit a mammoth home run, but also like commanded immediate respect. Commanded like it's hard. Walked into a clubhouse, in which it's not like he was a household name, but he hadn't been there, and commanded immediate respect from the entire team because, damn it, he was Don Baylor, and he was a guy that was seen as this leader. I think Mike Conley, same type of thing.
Yeah.
I really do.
Yeah.
And I saw this tweeted out. So in games Mike Conley played, the Wolves were 148 and 91, so about a 620 regular season winning percentage. And then Alan Horton tweeted out this. So he was acquired almost 3 years ago to the day. He was acquired on February 10th in 2023. During that time, Conley played in 91% of the games. Minnesota was a plus 60 games, over 500, obviously, in that record I just gave. When he was on the court, Minnesota was plus 708 in Mike Conley minutes, which is insane. And that was 3 playoff runs, 2 Western Finals, and his 19 playoff wins are the 4th most of any player in franchise history. And he was here for only 3 years. Yeah, I think in terms of the stability he just brought to the position that, I don't know, point guard's so weird too. Like back 20 years ago, I thought point guard was such, and it still is an integral part, but you don't see like point guards, I feel like, being as important maybe in today's NBA. And Mike was like, maybe not a throwback, but just a professional point guard that could handle this team.
Yeah.
And yeah, if he wants to come back, I'm kind of for it. But his run is legitimately like one of the best Wolves of all time.
Yeah, it's and it is, he is kind of throwback because you don't really see kind of the undersized traditional distributing point guards. There are like still some sprinkled throughout the league, but usually it's the big kind of athletic initiator. Like Luka Doncic is kind of a point guard, but not really at the same time. Anthony Edwards has become point ant, and so you don't have it's not like the early 90s where you had a bunch of dudes, a bunch of Scott Skiles and Mark Prices dribbling around. Muggsy Bogues was like 5'8". But yeah, his stability, his guidance. Also, you could argue that, I don't think there's actually any argument that Game 7 win over Denver in round 2 a couple years back is like the signature win in Timberwolves history. Down by 20 in the second half, do or die, trip to the Western Conference Finals on the line, and the Wolves start coming back and they take the lead. And the dagger shot in that sequence so they come back, they take the lead, they're up by like 7, and the game is about to be, out of reach, and Mike Conley steals a pass, takes it across half court, leads the full court or the fast break, finds a running Naz Reid, who then kicks it out to the corner for Anthony Edwards, who buries that 3 to basically put that game out of reach and starts kind of, chirping with the crowd. Mike Conley sparked that play. That's one of the signature plays in the history of Timberwolves basketball. So, yeah, it's funny because like Judd leading the charge, but we all kind of mock the tribute video culture that sports teams have. Like if anyone spent 5 minutes in a training camp now and they come back in another uniform, we got to give them a 10-minute tribute video and stop the game. Mike Conley, I feel like, rises above the line of he's a tribute video guy whenever he comes back in whatever uniform he's in.
Cat got 2 of them.
In the same night he got
Cat
2.
got 2 of them in the same night as the Knicks were kicking the Wolves' ass. Here's my question. Does Conley deserve 2?
I think he deserves 3, actually. 1 for each Western Conference Finals, and then 1 that's more of a broad appreciation one. So Mike Conley, dare I say, legendary Timberwolf, and we'll see what happens with him. Let's touch on a couple things, and news is shifting so fast, so we're not going to spend a ton more time here live. We'll keep it at like maybe 25, 30 minutes, and then we'll be ready to react to whatever happens. But Giannis did speak after the Bucks game last night. Eric Nehm from The Athletic has a couple of the more juicy quotes and anecdotes, but I'll give you 2 things from Giannis last night. From The Athletic's Eric Nehm, who said, I chatted with Giannis about how he's feeling heading into the trade deadline. Quote from Giannis, I want to be here in Milwaukee, but I want to be here to win, not fighting for my life to make the playoffs. And he was asked, well, if they could guarantee you, hey, starting next year, you're going to be back competing for championships in Milwaukee, would you want to stay? And he said, if they could somehow guarantee that, 1,000%, I'd want to stay in Milwaukee. But I just don't know that there's a path at this point for the Bucks to do that. And they're so far down the road exploring these trade ideas. It feels a lot like where the Wolves were at 15 years ago, where, hey, KG has maybe 2 or 3 years of prime left. We've tried some different iterations. There's an injury or two, and it's unlikely that you can make the playoffs and compete and like maybe be a 7 seed, but are you going to be actually competing for a championship? But he doesn't really want to leave Milwaukee, but he wants to win a championship more than he wants to stay in Milwaukee, and that's what he told The Athletic last night.
I also think he's petrified of being the bad guy. It's funny because it's sort of like, just rip the Band-Aid off, dude. Everybody knows it's fine. It's not going to be. It shouldn't be held against you.
Milwaukee fans are being very territorial about this.
But I mean, and he's trying to look like the good guy, but he's not the good. I don't buy. Like, yeah, if he can win a championship again, obviously he'd stay. And it sounds like the Bucks are trying to go with sort of a competitive rebuild. Hey, well, we got all these draft picks coming in. He wants out. Like, he just wants out, which is absolutely fine. But I don't really buy a lot of what he says, because I think he lets he lets his representation be the bad guys. And he's like, I love Milwaukee. Yeah, if you could tell me this and that. And I'm like, no, that's not true. Which, again, I don't hold it against you. You delivered a championship there. Like, to me, that's a major threshold. Like, KG didn't. You delivered a championship there. And once you deliver a championship in a market like that, I think your fan base should say thank you very much. I think to turn on a guy that won a championship, like, we turn on people here partially because they don't win championships.
Yeah.
Jimmy Butler was a horse's ass. He also didn't win a championship. So I think Giannis has done his penance there. I think he's done his work there. And if he wants to go chase a championship with a team that he feels is superior, or play with a guy like Ant, I think the Bucks fans should say thank you very much for what you did.
I agree. The championship aspect is what made the KG thing feel so, I think, strained and incomplete, because you couldn't lean back on, well, man, maybe we should have had multiple, but we got one. Like, the Bucks got one for the first time since the early 70s, or like early mid 70s. And the Timberwolves had one of the best 50 players to ever play the game for a 12-year period. They only made one run out of the first round. And it's so, as you're reconciling at the time, I think KG was 31, maybe 32 years old, somewhere in that range. And you're trying to reconcile, gosh, like, it's going to be a generation before you get another player that is this good and tenacious and competitive on both sides of the ball. And would it be better to just kind of ride this out and but they tried so many different iterations. They also lost, like, deep into his career, they lost 3 first-round picks because of the Joe Smith under-the-table deal that cost them 3 cracks at, like, we could probably go through those drafts and say, well, if the Wolves would have had a first-round pick, they could have had this guy. I remember there were some reports, like the last year or the second to last year of KG in Minnesota, they were close to acquiring Allen Iverson, I'm pretty sure. And Iverson wound up going to, like, was it the Pistons? I can't remember.
I think it was the Nuggets.
Denver,
Nuggets,
and then Pistons, yeah.
And but it was like they were trying to figure out, and they threw Ricky Davis in there at one point, and there just wasn't. There was some last gasp hope that by drafting maybe Randy Foye as a first round pick could just immediately be that guy, and he just wasn't. But it always felt like he never won a championship. Are you bailing on something too early here, and then he immediately goes and wins one? At least the Bucks got theirs, and it should make it feel a little bit less devastating if Giannis does leave. But I think Wolves fans can kind of empathize with, we went through that a long time ago. At least you guys got your championship out of Giannis.
So, Phil, now that this is at least getting closer and closer, it feels like, to being a reality, how comfortable are you with the potential return, if it happens?
Yeah, so on that, there are some big-time heavy hitter, credible reporters that are getting information on, like, the what now, because the Wolves aren't leaking anything, it sounds like, but when you have a third and a fourth team involved, things get leaked out of your control. And Chris Mannix had a report from Sports Illustrated, credible, who said the Bucks want Jaden McDaniels and multiple first-round picks from the Timberwolves in a potential Giannis trade. From the article, acquiring Giannis, though, is challenging. The Bucks want Jaden, a source tells SI, with Milwaukee seeing Jaden, 25 years old, as a potential future all-star. I mean, if that dude shot the ball like 7 or 8 more times a game, and now his scoring average is at that level of efficiency is like 24 points a game, and he's guarding your best player on the other side, yeah, like he's probably an all-star. But the Bucks also want multiple first-round draft picks, and Minnesota's war chest of them is nearly empty. So it continues to be the Timberwolves, according to multiple reports, looking for other avenues to get those first-round picks.
Yeah, which probably means
Gobert
Julius
over here, Julius over there,
right.
Whatever it would look like.
Right.
But if this is accurate, that the Bucks want Jaden McDaniels as like the current player centerpiece and first round picks, which I think would be a great haul for the Bucks if they could come out of this with Jaden and like 3 first round picks or something. Dude, and Jaden becomes one of your top 2 in terms of like volume of shots, offensive centerpieces. That's really interesting for them. And the Wolves have to go back to the same thing we've been debating essentially since last summer when we first did a Giannis Timberwolves trade speculation episode. Are you comfortable trading Jaden McDaniels and a couple other key pieces of your rotation for Giannis? And I think as much as we see how great Jaden McDaniels can be, and especially in the last week, he's making it so hard in the last week because he's playing his best basketball of the season. You also have to ask yourself, is Jaden McDaniels anywhere near the level of Giannis right now? And the answer is no, if Giannis is like healthy and on the court. And would you regret trading him because he could become like 80% or 90% of what Giannis is next year or the year after? And I just keep going back to no, like Jaden is a really good player. And he's younger, 5-6 years younger, and that does matter. And he's less expensive, and that matters too. But Giannis is one of the greatest players who's ever played, and he still has like 3 years of prime left, maybe more. Get past this calf injury, because that is a little worrisome, because it's close to the Achilles, and there's been some of those in the NBA. But I think like you can't dream of Giannis playing next to Anthony Edwards and also not be willing to give up Jaden McDaniels and or Naz. I'd like to keep either Naz or Jaden. Totally fine with both Rudy and Julius Randle being shipped out in some iteration of this trade.
If I'm the Bucks, I'm getting Jaden. Flat out. No trade is made without him.
Dude,
Naz Reid, I like. Nice player. I'm getting Jaden.
Remember when the Wolves blinked in those KG Celtics discussions? The Celtics like protected Rajon Rondo. They said, you're not getting Rajon Rondo. Why? It's Kevin Garnett. Like the fact that the Wolves blink, like you're right. If you're the Bucks, why blink? You could do this trade in the offseason. If you want him right now, the tax is Jaden McDaniels. It's a perfectly fair ask if you're the Bucks.
But fans, and we're seeing this in the comments right now, are very opposed to Jaden. Very opposed to Jaden being
Scottie
traded.
Pippen.
Yep. This actually, I'd be very curious if and when this does take place, which would be today or tomorrow. I'd be very curious to see, because it would not be a consensus of Wolves fans being pleased about this. There is a lot of Jaden McDaniels protectors right now, and I get it. But then to your point, the question is, do you want Giannis or not? That's the question, because you're not going to like slip them, hey, here's some draft picks and TJ Shannon and Dillingham. It's not going to happen.
Yeah. On that point, and then Dex sent us another update on this here as they're coming fast and furious. I think if you were to decide Jaden is just, he's not Giannis, but like Ant plus Jaden plus Naz is a great trio to build out something that could be a championship team, then I feel like you need to have a really strong plan of, all right, what are the next chess moves then? If you're going to hang on to those guys, how are you pivoting off while they still have value? Rudy Gobert on the edge of his prime, Julius Randle on the edge of his prime, because you would then be leaning into, these guys are all in their mid-20s. Naz is the oldest one. but we're going to keep the band together. Jaden and Nas in particular are probably under market value now because they've gotten better and they signed contracts at like $25 million a year. Okay, then I would be, if Tim Conley decided those three guys as the centerpiece can win a championship in the next like 3 or 4 years, I'll ride with that. But then sometime this summer, I think you got to start figuring out, what does it look like? How do you get off Rudy? How do you get off Julius? And go right now with this nucleus at age 25 through like 27. But also, like, if you made the deal for Giannis, it's not like a one and done thing here. Like, you'd for sure have him for 2 seasons. He's probably, like, if he loves playing with Ant, probably signing an extension, especially to keep the, like, if offered an extension, he'd be stupid to turn it down, because if you blow out your Achilles or something, and now the landscape has changed. So you'd still be able to either make moves around them, and there'd be people that want to come play for the Timberwolves that maybe otherwise wouldn't. And then also, we've seen, like, if it was untenable and didn't work for some reason, you could trade Giannis in 2 years for some value and recoup something. So that's kind of where I'm at. Is I would lean toward including Jaden and make it happen and figure out what to do around Ant and Giannis. But it is not 100%. I can also see building a championship team around the 3 main guys that you have for long-term contracts.
If this trade doesn't get done by the Thursday deadline too, I don't think it's dead. I think this could easily be revisited and consummated in the offseason. So, like, yes, it's a drop-dead deadline on Thursday for 2025-26, but if it doesn't work out, like, and the Bucks could pull him back. Like, the Bucks do not have to trade him. He does not have a hammer. He doesn't have no trade protection, which this league has for like 4 or 5 players. God bless it. So I would not discount if Jaden doesn't get traded by tomorrow and Giannis stays with the Bucks. I would not say that means that Jaden is entirely safe in perpetuity here.
Yeah. Dex, you sent us this from Johnny K from The Athletic. Things can change in a heartbeat this time of year. That said, 3 things. 1, I don't have any indications that Dante DiVincenzo is going anywhere. He shouldn't, because if you got 2 dudes who make that much money in Giannis and Ant, guess what you need? Players that are really good who make like $12 million instead of 50. And Dante fits that bill for the next 2 years. There continues to be skepticism that Milwaukee will actually move Giannis this week. And the Wolves remain in those talks and others for bench depth. So that's kind of the landscape.
Well, and the second thing goes back to what you brought up, Phil, which is, if the Bucks are smart, like, you do not take we have to take a package, like the Garnett trade. Oh, we have to take a package, so we'll take this. You demand, and if you're told no, you say, okay, you know what? We'll talk to you this summer.
Yeah. Yep, the Bucks are fully in the driver's seat. Like, if you're gonna get him this week, you're probably paying a tax on top of the ridiculous price that it would already cost you to get one of the greatest players in NBA's history who is still in his prime. So, Mike Conley, appreciation episode, and that's the latest in a fast-moving news cycle here on Flagrant Howls. And we'll be on standby to react to whatever happens here in the next like 27 hours or so. Judd, Dex, Phil, Flagrant Howls, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, the bell notifications on this Timberwolves Lifestyle podcast.